Jesus came to this world like a man.
God the Son.
He walked on this earth.
Who is Jesus?
with all his apostles.
Why did he come?
He done a lot of things many were amazed to see. Yet they didn't know who he really was. He raised the dead to life and made the blind to see. He walked on the water and calmed the sea. He set them free from the sin with his mighty power. That they didn't know who he really was. He was sent down from God above. He was the one that took our place on the cross. Now he's seated at the right side of God. And one day he will come again to take us home with him. He turned the water into wine. He fed many people with fish and bread. As he spoke, many were touched by his word. But they didn't know who he really was. He told them how to live their lives. If they want to see the kingdom of God, they must have faith and trust and believe in him. Yet they didn't know who he really was. He was sent down from God above. He was the one that took our place on the cross. Now he's seated at the right side of God. That one day he will come again to take us home with him. One day he will come again to take us home with him.
This is what God's book says about God the Son. Jesus is the Word.
In the beginning was the one who is called the Word. The Word was with God and was truly God. And with this Word, God created all things. The Word became a human being and lived here with us. We saw his true glory. From him all the kindness and all the truth of God have come down to us. John chapter 1 verse 3 and verse 14.
Jesus is God with us.
So God's promise came true, just as the prophet had said, "A virgin will have a baby boy, and he will be called Emmanuel," which means God is with us. Matthew 1:22-23.
Jesus is Messiah, the one God promised to send.
The Lord's Spirit has come to me because he has chosen me to tell the good news to the poor. The Lord has sent me to announce freedom for prisoners, to give sight to the blind, to free everyone who suffers. Luke 4, verse 18 and verse 19.
Jesus is the Lamb of God.
Sins are forgiven only if blood is poured out. Hebrews 9:22b. You are rescued by the precious blood of Christ, that spotless and innocent Lamb. Christ was chosen even before the world was created, but because of you, he didn't come until these last days. And when he did come, it was to lead you to have faith in God, who raised him from death and honoured him in a glorious way. 1 Peter 1:19-21a.
Jesus is the great priest.
Christ came as the high priest. Christ went once and for all into the most holy place and freed us from sin forever. Christ was sinless, and he offered himself as an eternal and spiritual sacrifice to God. That's why his blood is much more powerful and makes our consciences clear. Hebrews 9, verse 11 to verse 14.
Jesus is the Redeemer. He pays the price to rescue others.
Jesus is the Redeemer. He pays the price to rescue others. Then I looked and saw a lamb standing in the centre of the throne. The lamb looked as if it had once been killed. The 4 living creatures and the 24 elders knelt down before him, and they sang a new song. You are worthy to receive the scroll and open its seals, because you were killed. And with your own blood you bought for God people from every tribe, language, nation and race. Revelation 5:6-9.
Jesus is the Son of Man, that special man from God.
The high priest asked Jesus another question. Are you the Messiah, the Son of the glorious God? Yes, I am, Jesus answered. Soon you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right side of God, all-powerful, and coming with the clouds of heaven. Mark 14, verse 61-62. When the Son of Man comes in his glory with all his angels, he will say to those on his right, those who belong to him, My Father has blessed you. Come and receive the kingdom that was prepared for you before the world was created. Matthew 25, verse 31-34.
Jesus is the one who serves and cares for others.
Jesus called his disciples together and said, You know that foreign rulers like to order their people around, and their great leaders have full power over everyone they rule. But don't act like them. If you want to be great, you must be the servant of all the others. The Son of Man did not come to be a slave master, but a slave who will give his life to rescue many people. Matthew 20:25-28.
Jesus is the light.
Jesus spoke to the people, I am the light for the world. Follow me, and you won't be walking in the dark. You will have the light that gives life. John 8, verse 12.
Jesus is the gate for his people.
Jesus said, I tell you for certain that only thieves and robbers climb over the fence instead of going in through the gate to the sheep pen. But the gatekeeper opens the gate for the sheep, and he goes in through it. The sheep know their shepherd's voice. He calls each of them by name and leads them out. I tell you for certain that I am the gate for the sheep. All who come in through me will be saved. John 10, 1-3, 7-9.
Jesus is the true vine.
Jesus said to his disciples, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. I am the vine, and you are the branches. If you stay joined to me, and I stay joined to you, then you will produce lots of fruit. But you can't do anything without me. Stay joined to me, and let my teachings become part of you. John chapter 15, verse 1, verse 5, verse 7.
Jesus is the beginning and the end.
Jesus said, I am coming soon, and when I come, I will reward everyone for what they have done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Revelation 22, 12-13.
Jesus is the cornerstone. In a stone building, the cornerstone is the first stone put down. It shows where all the other stones must be placed to belong and to make a strong building.
Come to Jesus Christ. He is the living stone that people have rejected, but which God has chosen and highly honoured. And now you are living stones that are being used to build a spiritual house. God said, Look, I am placing a choice and precious cornerstone. No one who has faith in that one will be disappointed. 1 Peter 2, verse 4 to verse 6.
Jesus is the bread that gives life.
When Jesus saw the large crowd coming towards him, he asked Philip, Where will we get a lot of food to feed all the people? He said this to test Philip. Since he already knew what he was going to do, Philip answered, Don't you know that it would take money for a year's work just to buy only a little bread for each of these people? Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter, spoke up and said, There's a boy here who has 5 small loaves of barley bread and 2 fish. But what good is that with all these people? Jesus told his disciples, to get everyone to sit down on the grass. About 5,000 men were there. Jesus took the bread in his hands and gave thanks to God. Then he passed the bread to the people, and he did the same with the fish until everyone had plenty to eat. Jesus told his disciples to gather together any bread that was left around. The disciples gathered it up and filled 12 baskets with what was left over from the 5 barley loaves. Jesus then told them, "My Father is the one who gives you the true bread from heaven. And the bread God gives is the one who came down from heaven to give life to the world." The people said, "Lord, give us this bread and don't ever stop." Jesus replied, "I am the bread that gives life. Everyone who eats it will live forever. My flesh is the life-giving bread that I give to the people of this world." John 6.
Jesus is the teacher.
Jesus knew that he had come from God and would be going back to God. He also knew that the Father had given him complete power. So during the meal, Jesus got up, removed his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. He put some water into a large bowl. Then he began washing his disciples' feet and drying them with the towel he was wearing. But when he came to Simon Peter, that disciple asked, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered, "You don't really know what I am doing, but later you will understand." "You will never wash my feet," Peter replied. "If I don't wash you, you don't really belong to me," Jesus told him. After Jesus had washed his disciples' feet and had put his outer garment back on, he sat down again. Then he said, "Do you understand what I have done? You call me your teacher and Lord, and you should, because that is what I am. And if your Lord and teacher has washed your feet, you should do the same for each other. I have set the example, and you must serve each other exactly as I have served you." John 13, verse 3 to verse 8, and verse 12 to verse 15.
Jesus is the doctor who makes people well.
"Teacher, I brought my son to you. A demon keeps him from talking. Whenever the demon attacks my son, it throws him to the ground and makes him foam at the mouth and grit his teeth in pain. Then he becomes stiff. I asked your disciples to force out the demon, but they couldn't do it. Then they brought the boy. And as soon as the demons saw Jesus, it made the boy shake all over. He fell down and began rolling on the ground and foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy's father, "How long has it been like this?" The man answered, "Ever since he was a child. The demon has often tried to kill him by throwing him into a fire or into water. Please have pity and help us if you can." Jesus replied, "Why do you say, 'if you can'? Anything is possible for someone who has faith." Straight away the boy's father shouted, "I do have faith. Please help me to trust you more." Jesus spoke straight to the evil spirits. "I order you to come out of the boy. Don't ever bother him again." The spirit screamed and made the boy shake all over. Then it went out of him. The boy looked dead, and almost everyone said he was. But Jesus took hold of his hand and helped him stand up. Mark 9:17-27.
Jesus is the resurrection and the life.
When Jesus got to Bethany, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. When Martha heard that Jesus had arrived, she went out to meet him and said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Yet I know that God will do anything you ask." Jesus told her, "Your brother will live again." Martha answered, "I know that he'll be raised to life on the last day, when all the dead are raised." Jesus then said, "I am the one who raised the dead to life. Everyone who has faith in me will live, even if they die. And everyone who lives because of faith in me will never really die. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she replied. "I believe that you are Christ, the Son of God. You are the one we hoped would come into the world." Jesus went to the tomb, which was a cave with a stone rolled against the entrance. Then he told the people to roll the stone away. But Martha said, "Lord, you know that Lazarus has been dead for 4 days, and there will be a bad smell." Jesus replied, "Didn't I tell you that if you had faith, you would see the glory of God?" After the stone had been rolled aside, Jesus looked up towards heaven and prayed. When he had finished praying, he shouted, "Lazarus, come out!" Then the man who had been dead came out. His hands and feet were wrapped with strips of burial cloth, and a cloth covered his face. Jesus then told the people, "Untie him and let him go." John 11.
Jesus prays for his people.
Father, I want everyone you have given me to be with me, wherever I am. Then they will see the glory that you have given me, because you loved me before the world was created. John 17:24.
In my mind's eye, I see the King in all of his splendor. I see heavenly things when I look out. I hear angels sing, glory to the Father, praises to the King. So I give thanks to the Holy One, to the Lamb who is worthy. I give praise to the Son,